Jacob. I'm here at the YS Idea Lab with Amy Williams. And if you don't know about the Idea Lab yet, it's the place where we share practical tips and tricks that you can take home and use in your ministry back home. And I'm especially excited about this discussion because it's not one that there's a whole lot of easy tips and tricks. It's a lot of learning, a long process, and Amy is the one to talk about that. So a little bit about her. She's been in youth ministry in and around that world for 21 years, and your passion specifically is ministering to teens involved in gangs, youth on probation, parole, and those lost in the criminal justice system. And you're based around Chicago area. And as a certified gang intervention specialist, she's also a great youth pastor, reentry coordinator for paroled youth, and a trainer for other youth workers. So that's the written bio. Give me the nitty gritty. Like, break it down. What's your story within youth ministry and what brought you here?
Sure. So I consider it an incredible privilege and opportunity to walk life with young people that find themselves in darkness and with young people that society kind of writes off and considers them of no value and of no worth. And so I started my journey by working with Young Life. I think everybody has worked with Young Life, right? But then I was a youth pastor in Chicago in the Humboldt Park neighborhood. And I just found that my passion was to be on the street. I wanted to be with, I was drawn to young people that were gangbanging, that were dealing drugs, that were in the prison system. And so I stepped down as a youth pastor, and I asked God, what do you want me to do now? And his response was, I need you to move into a gang neighborhood. Now, I know 95% of you out there, when God tells you to do something, you just do it. Right? But when God tells someone like me to move into a gang neighborhood, as fine as I am, I got some questions about that, being single. And so when God said, move into a gang neighborhood, my first response was, you got jokes. That is funny. I mean, look. See, that was God saying, yes, that was not funny. But we had this conversation, and I'm asking him, I'm saying I can love on kids without living in the neighborhood. I don't have to live in a gang neighborhood. And he said to me something very, very simple, Jacob. He said, I'm already in that neighborhood. I haven't forsaken those kids. And I'm not asking you to go in that neighborhood and save them. I don't see any holes or nails in your feet or your hands. But what I am asking you to do is to be a light in a kid's darkness. A light in a kid's darkness. And he said, and for those kids, they need you to live there. And so what that looks like is just me hitting the block, loving on kids, playing basketball, picking them up, going to school, going to every court date that they have. If they're in, lockup, going to visit them, loving on their family, hanging out, just walking life with kids, being what I call a hope dealer to the dope dealer, right? So they're dealing dope and I'm slinging hope, right? And that hope is found in Jesus. And so I just want to be a reflection of who he is and show them that God lives among them and loves them and hasn't abandoned them.
Yeah. So fill us in on what's the difference between at-risk kids and high-risk kids?
So there is a difference between at-risk youth and high-risk youth. What kind of kids are at risk? Every kid, right? It doesn't matter what race you are, ethnicity, whether you're rich, poor, in the city, in rural areas. It doesn't matter. Every single kid is at risk of not growing into a healthy adulthood. But there's a subset of at-risk youth that we call high-risk youth that have 10 kind of things that they contend with that at-risk youth might not contend with. And so if they don't have outside intervention coming in helping them with all of these additional things that they're wrestling with, then they're not going to transition into a healthy adulthood. So it's just a subset of those kind of youth.
So, and we talk a lot, we use a lot of churchy words about like mentoring and discipleship. Right, yeah. And so maybe give your perspective on what's the difference between mentoring youth and walking life with youth.
Right.
What does that look like for you?
So there is a huge difference between mentoring and discipling, right? Yeah, and so discipling youth really just caters to and is the part of the spiritual piece. of walking life. But what do you do with kids who don't know God, who give God the middle finger, who aren't necessarily wanting to hear anything about Jesus, right? Those are the kids also that we want to mentor as well until they get to the place where we can disciple them, right? Yeah. And so mentoring is the simple part of walking life with kids where they are on their journey. Right now, Jacob, a lot of us as youth workers, we tend to think that we are the lead role in a kid's life, but we're actually the supporting role of a kid's life. And our job, our privilege, is to walk life with them as they discover their journey, as they come into relationship with God, right? And so we have to let them experience that journey and maybe guide them, be there for them, let them fall, let them fail. But mentoring is about the whole person, not just the spiritual part, right? Yeah. And so a kid doesn't want to hear about Jesus if he's hungry, right? A kid who is cold, I mean, I live in Chicago, so, if they don't have a jacket, don't tell them about Jesus, give them the jacket, right? And then look for opportunities for that. But discipleship is that straight spiritual, we're going to tell you what it means to look like Jesus. Whereas mentoring is saying we as adults, we want to walk life with you on your journey of discovering who you are and the purpose that you have in this world.
Yeah. Well, asking a little bit of a personal question for you, when you are walking life with a kid, and you start to realize that maybe there's an out of balance place where you're giving way more than emotionally you should. I mean, what do you do to help protect yourself from giving too much? Or is that, from your own perspective, how do you keep yourself balanced and healthy?
So I learned the hard way. I've been doing youth ministry for 21 years. And so at some point you learn that self-care is critical and self-care is crucial, and that there is a thing called the ministry of no, right? And we have to learn the no. And our kids are okay with the no. I think that we think that the kids need to always hear yeses. And sometimes the best thing about saying no is that we're modeling for kids what it means to care for ourselves, right? Sure, yeah. In a way that is healthy. And so I am blessed to have people around me. I have a certain group of people that I allow to speak into my life. Yeah. I don't let everybody speak into my life because I don't know what everybody's motives are. And so they could be speaking death into my life. So I have adults who I allow them to say, when's the last time you hung around an adult, Amy? Right? When's the last time you went salsa dancing? When is the last time you went to sleep and didn't wake up, right? And so what I've come to realize is that self-care, if we don't do it for ourselves and if we don't protect ourselves, no one's going to do it for us. Because everybody's needy. And a lot of times our identity is wrapped up in our need to be needed. Sure. And so there are times when I'm like, okay, that kid is going to be okay if I take a nap. Yeah. And that kid is going to be okay. It doesn't change my relationship with him or her. Sure. But if I am unhealthy and I'm tired, and I know me, when I'm tired, I snap, right? So I could be exhausted, and the kid is like, Amy, and I'd be like, what you need? Like you need Jesus, not me. So it's really about, it's okay to say no. Yeah. It's okay to say no, and to have those people around you that can hold you accountable to that. Yeah.
So, and you already touched a little bit on some of the details that you share in your seminar on mentoring high-risk youth. Yeah. But do you have a couple more that you would want to, just in case if we can't make it to the seminar, just to give a little bit more detail?
Well, I think one of the most important things that I love to share and that I hear from the kids that I work with that's very important. I feel like, we are the voice of the kids that can't speak. And what I want to share is that we have to recognize that kids are not projects to be fixed. A lot of times we tend to look at young people for their needs and their deficits and saying that kid needs me and I am the one to fix it. Kids are not. Kids have the same ability to have the same Holy Spirit in them that we have. Kids are on that same journey that we have been on, and some of us are still on, but kids have the ability to change the world. if we give them a place, right? And so what we have to understand is that we can't be in true community with young people if the relationship looks like a doctor and a patient relationship. Because if it's a doctor-patient relationship, what happens if the kid needs a doctor? They always have to be sick.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? And we always have to be well. And the truth is, I don't ever want I want my kids to be healthy. I don't want them to stay sick in order to need me. And so we have to figure out, what does it mean to come into true community with young people and give them the space to explore and not treat them like they're projects to be fixed. I think that's one of the most important things that I can share. And then in addition to that, we have to always remember who we are and who we're not. And what I mean by that is, God is the great I am, and we're the I am nots. Okay? I am a hot mess, and I need Jesus. I know I'm the only one that needs Jesus, but I acknowledge that I'm a hot mess and I need him. And so at the end of the day, if God doesn't do it, it's not going to get done, right? And so we have to recognize who we are and who we're not, and then look at our young people totally different than the way that we have.
Yeah. Well, we've got maybe like 30 more seconds. What's one final word of encouragement that you would want to share with youth workers here?
I appreciate and love the work that you do. I respect the work that you do. I beg you to please allow our young people's voices to be heard. We need to be better at listening to our young people. I challenge everybody that if there is an issue that you are wrestling with in your youth ministry, the solution lies within the young people there. Have the young people sit at the table and hear them. I can do what I do with kids in gangs. I can do what I do with kids that are in lockup because I have relationships with gang leaders. I have relationships with gang members. I have relationships with probation and parole. I'm listening to the ones that have the solution to their own problems, right? And so we have to understand that we have to be in true community, that we're not here and they're here, but together we can impact the world. And so please give young people the ability to have their voices heard and listen. Well,
thank you so much, Amy. Let's give
Thanks,
Amy
Jacob.
a round of applause.
Thank you.